So minimalism changed my life, but my journey hasn't always been sunshine and rainbow. Somewhere along the way, I actually developed quite a toxic relationship with minimalism, and I want to share that with you today. So I used to have a bit of shopping addiction. After minimalism, my expenses went down by a lot, which was refreshing at first, but at some point I started taking things a little bit too far. Basically, I would feel guilty about spending any money or buying anything. Now, there is quite a spectrum when we talk about minimalism. Some people call themselves extreme minimalists and they aspire to having as little as possible. I am far from being an extreme minimalist, but luckily that's not my goal either, at least not anymore. I consider myself quite an average minimalist, and my intention is not to have nothing, but rather to own everything with intention. However, at the beginning of my minimalism journey, I felt guilty about spending any money, whether if it was a small purchase or a big expense. I should also mention, around the time I found minimalism, I also decided I wanted to achieve financial freedom in the shortest time possible. So that might have affected the way I practiced minimalism as well. For a while, I associated minimalism with spending zero money, to the point I would deprive myself of the things which would actually add values to my life. For example, I now use Canva to make the thumbnails for my videos, and I pay about £10 a month. It might sound really silly, but I refused to pay that for a long time because I wanted to stay true to minimalism. The truth is, however, this service is worth every penny because it saves me so much time. In case you are new here, I feel like I should give you a bit of context because I used to be that girl who would walk into a Chanel store and spend thousands of pounds on a handbag just because I had a bad day at work. So the contrast in the way I spent before and after minimalism was huge, and sometimes not in a very healthy way. Another example would be when I bought my WOOLRICH PARKA jacket, which cost about £600. Even though I had lived in the UK for nearly a decade at that point, I didn't actually have a reliable winter jacket. After having a child, we started doing a lot more outdoor activities, so I decided maybe it's time to look for a jacket. Around that time, I found minimalism, and I really agonized over if I should splurge on a jacket because I already had a closet full of clothes. Well, now I can say I'm really glad I made the purchase because I wear this jacket so much and it really does make the winter a lot more manageable. All that being said, this is not a justification for anyone to buy absolutely everything they kind of like. The point I'm making here is we shouldn't feel guilty about paying for things or services if they add values to our lives, as long as we are not doing it in a way that could compromise our financial security. Now, it goes without saying, adding values looks different to everyone. For some people, this might mean having a really fancy coffee machine because having a good cup of coffee in the morning is non-negotiable. For others, it might be having the best electronic gadgets, and for you, it might be having a curated wardrobe. We all have different priorities, and I think minimalism is a fantastic tool to help us identify them. During my early days of minimalism, when I tried to do everything the textbook way, I also found myself becoming quite judgmental. I often had inner dialogues like, why did John buy a 6-bedroom house when he only uses 3? Why did Lucy buy a new car when her old one was working perfectly fine? And why does Nancy go to Starbucks 6 times a day? And so on and so forth. Obviously, no one asked for my opinion. It was just me asking all the unnecessary, irrelevant, and very nosy questions. After a while, I realized I was getting a bit consumed by the idea of perfect minimalism to the point I started using it as a yardstick to measure others. The thing is, other people can say the same about me. I mean, why do I have designer bags and why do I even own a car when I have access to public transport? So who am I to judge other people? I feel like sometimes toxic minimalism and shopping addiction are just the opposite extremes of the same problem. In the past, I would compare myself to people who seem to have more than I did, but now I found myself conveniently judging others for having too much. Both were very unhealthy exercises. Luckily, I outgrew that very limiting mindset a while ago. The truth is, I'm not the perfect minimalist, nor do I aspire to being one, and I certainly have no right to impose anything on anyone. And if being judgmental towards others wasn't bad enough already, I judge myself a lot too. Many times I would look at my things and question myself if I had too much. When I first learned about minimalism, it was like a revelation for me, and I wanted to go all in. I think within a year, my possessions went down by 30%, and in 2 years, 40% was gone. Now, I still really believe in decluttering because it has truly been life-changing, but I probably took it a bit too far, too quickly. For example, I went through a period where I would really scrutinize my space to look for the next thing to declutter. And if I hadn't used something in the last 6 months, there was no other way around it. I had to sell it as quickly as possible. Oftentimes, I speak about downsizing my designer collection. And you know what? It is really refreshing to let go of excess, but that doesn't mean you're not allowed to pace yourself. Especially with selling designer pieces, there's a lot to look into. For example, looking for a trustworthy buyer and researching about the selling price and insurance costs. All these take time, so it is really okay to give yourself some grace. At the moment, my luxury collection is a lot smaller, but it's not perfectly curated in the sense that I still own pieces that I don't use much. Now, my old version of minimalist would have had zero tolerance about this, but I've decided I'm not an emotionless decluttering machine, so if I need more time, then that's exactly what I'll do for myself. Sometimes minimalism can also become a different form of consumerism if you're not careful. I think Pinterest and Instagram can be fantastic places for inspiration, but if I'm completely honest, social media did make me feel like minimalism had to look a certain way and a certain way only. And to give you an example, at one point I really wanted to replace all the cups and mugs in my kitchen because I wanted everything to look matching and minimalistic. The funny thing is though, before I came across minimalism, I didn't have any problems with having cups in different shapes and sizes, or the fact that they were free gifts from work conferences. Same goes with the couch in my living room. It is still really comfortable, but the minimalist part of me tried to convince me that it didn't look minimalist enough and that it was way too big for our small family. By now, I guess you can probably see a common theme here, which is the urge or the compulsion to replace functional items just for the sake of a more minimalistic aesthetic. So if you think about it, keeping up with the Joneses can actually apply to the world of minimalism as well, but this time we are competing on different things, including owning the most minimalist looking homes. I wanted to address this because I feel like this kind of insecurity can sometimes lead to consumerism in the name of minimalism, as ironic as that sounds. And in case you are wondering, I still have the same big couch and the same mug selection, but I don't feel disqualified to be a minimalist. So I guess those are the potential dark sides of minimalism. I just want to clarify that minimalism is a wonderful concept in itself, and I'm not planning to give it up anytime soon. But I just want to make sure that I'm not taking it too far again, to the point I develop a toxic relationship with it. Minimalism has changed my life for the better in so many ways, so the last thing I want is to resent the idea of being a minimalist. Let me know if you can relate to the things I mentioned in this video, and as always, I will see you in the comment section.